First, there was the uprising in Syria, then came Europe's refugee crisis, and now what sometimes looks like a partnership, sometimes like a standoff with Turkey. The German parliament overwhelmingly approving a measure that recognizes the massacre of hundreds of thousands of Armenians a century ago as a genocide. Reaction swift, with the recall of the Turkish ambassador in Berlin. That fury follows Ankara's failure to see the funny side of German cartoons and sketches, poking fun at President Erdogan's increasingly authoritarian streak. And as relations sour, the problem is that, well, the nation that's home to over 3 million people who claim Turkish heritage, Germany, needs Ankara to shut down that migrant route to Europe. No one more so than Angela Merkel, who last year went to the Turkish capital to court Erdogan 1 week before a snap general election that he won. She would get a deal, he an opening to an EU promising cash and visa-free travel for his citizens. Is engagement or isolation the course to take with Mr. Erdogan? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the wrath of Turkey's president. With us from Berlin, journalist and commentator Roland Tichy. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for inviting me to this important question for Germany.
And welcome back as well from Istanbul, Harun Armagan of Turkey's ruling AK party. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Here in the studio, Yves Bertoncini, director of the Jacques Delors Institute, which focuses squarely on issues pertaining to the European Union. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. In the Bundestag, 1 vote against, 1 abstention, and all the rest of those present in Parliament voting for that resolution, recognizing the Armenian genocide. The Turkish president on trip to Kenya, calling the German chancellor on the phone to complain, recalling his ambassador to Berlin, and warning the vote will seriously impact Turkish-German relations. Kathy Clifford has more.
Voted through by an overwhelming majority, the Bundestag tells the world it believes an Armenian genocide occurred a century ago at the hands of Ottoman Turks. Its president addressed what he described as threats from Turkey with the, quote, aim of preventing the German parliament's free opinion-making.
We Germans know, maybe better than anyone, because of the dark chapters of our history, how painful it can be to deal with the past. But we also know that an honest self-criticism of the past doesn't damage relationships with other countries. The Turkish government is not responsible for what happened 100 years ago, but it shares responsibility in what happens in the future.
As soon as the resolution passed, Turkey withdrew its ambassador from Germany for talks, with an angry warning from President Erdogan.
This will seriously affect relations between our two countries. When I go back to Turkey, we will evaluate this issue and we will take necessary steps.
It comes at a delicate time when Germany and the EU needs Turkey's help stopping the flow of migrants crossing to Europe. The two states also share cultural and social ties with some 3.5 million German citizens with Turkish backgrounds living in Germany. Chancellor Angela Merkel supports the initiative, though she wasn't present for the vote itself. She spoke shortly after, stressing the two countries' common interests.
Germany and Turkey have so much in common. We want to do everything so that Armenia and Turkey can talk about how to come to terms with this history, whilst nurturing German-Turkish relations.
Within the resolution, Germany also acknowledges its own failure to stop the mass killings as an ally of Ottoman Turkey at the time.
Harun Armagan, I want your reaction to something we heard in that report from the president of the German parliament. He said the current Turkish government is not responsible for what happened over a century ago, but it can be held responsible for what will happen in the future. How do you interpret that?
First of all, we don't accept that there was such a thing as an Armenian genocide. Till now, there has been no independent study made on this to prove that there was a genocide. We do not accept it. Our position is very clear. We have never shied away from our history. We have never shied away from getting the truth. But there has been, President Erdogan repeatedly invited European countries and Armenians to set up.
So you're denying that hundreds of thousands of Armenians were slaughtered?
We do not accept there was a genocide. There has been no independent study made on this to prove. President Erdogan repeatedly invited European countries and Armenians share their documents. What we have done is that we have documented and categorized 1.5 million documents related to this part of the history, and we invited Armenians and Europeans to do the same, and they haven't done so. So no nation has right to impose their own version of the history to another one with baseless accusations. Actually, the question is why the German parliament is not acknowledging the genocide, such as the French genocide of Algeria, the French genocide committed to 1.5 million, committed to kill 1.5 million people in Algeria. And the Italians have murdered and committed to genocide 1 million in Libya. And the Belgians committed to genocide 10 million people in Congo. The Russians committed to genocide 1.5 million North Caucasians in North Caucasus. So why German parliament is not acknowledging? Let me finish. Why German parliament is not actually acknowledging these real genocides that took place in the history, just because those genocides, the victims of those genocides were Muslims or Arab Muslims or black people?
It not only recognized recognized it as a genocide. It also recognized the then German government's part of responsibility in what happened. Germany was an ally of the Ottoman Empire at the time.
Look, the history is that we invited European countries, European Union, to set up a committee consist of scientists, researchers, historians, lawmakers, all the people actually that have right to talk on this topic. And then we are ready to accept what this committee actually takes out. But we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that effort. So the history is a scientific topic, and it goes with science and research. It doesn't go to political parliaments. And I am asking you, why German parliament actually, if they are on this topic, why they are not acknowledging the real genocides, like the genocides of French in Algeria and the genocide of Belgians in Congo? I'm asking, is that the reason, because they are Muslims and Africans, that it doesn't mean anything for them?
Roland Tichy, let me ask you about the vote today. I know originally there was supposed to be a vote this vote was to have taken place last year. It was postponed. What do you think about the vote, about the timing of it, and about the remarks we just heard from Harun Armagan?
I guess this vote came to the most wrong minute in history anyhow, because Germany needs Turkey. Germany needs the Turkish government to stop the refugee immigration over Turkey from Middle East regions. I guess what happened here is the long shadow of history. I do not jump into the question if it is a genocide or if it was a genocide or not. I just want to describe what happened in the 1920s. Franz Werfel, in those days a very well-known author, wrote a novel about the last days of the Armenian people on Musa Dagh, where they have been slaughtered. This novel was the picture which came to reality 20 years later through Holocaust. So this is a projection of Germans on Armenian and Turkish history. During the last 30 or 40 years, you took the number of about 3 to 4 million immigrants from Turkey. Germany imported the ethnic and the historical conflicts from Turkey within Germany and incorporated those inner Turkish conflicts into German inner politics. So this is the case just right now that it came to this vote, and I guess this is for Angela Merkel one of the worst days in her government, because she wants to work together with Erdogan, and this working together, this agreement about the actual refugee crisis now is shattered by the long shadows of history.
Shattered, or will this pass?
Nobody knows now, but at the moment I cannot see that there is the will of the Turkish government to follow an agreement with a country with, if wrong or right, by a country which has provoked Turkish policy. And the numbers we learn of refugees are very fast increasing. In the first 4 months of this year, about 250,000 migrants, refugees came to Germany, most of them over Turkey. So this shows us that the agreement anyhow doesn't work, and I see no way that it will improve during the next half of the year.
All right, we're going to pick up on that point, Roland Tichy. We're going to pick up on that point about how that EU deal with Turkey on the return of refugees and migrants is going. First, though, just before we continue, I want to cross to Ankara and France 24 correspondent Jasper Mortimer. Just to make one point clear, it's not just the ruling AK party, Jasper. You were telling us what, some 3/4 of Turkish society who are angry over this vote in the Bundestag.
Yes, and François, since we last spoke, a third political party in Parliament has come out against the Bundestag vote. And together these three parties, the ruling AK party and two of the opposition parties, represent 90% of the electorate. They have dismissed the Bundestag resolution. The one party that welcomed the resolution is the pro-Kurdish party, the People's Democratic Party, the HDP. And I was speaking to their head of Foreign Affairs Committee, Hüsya Özsoy, just now. And he said, you know, it would be nice if this resolution could facilitate a similar debate in Turkey. Turkey has to find the courage to come to terms with its past. The HDP is the only party in parliament that does recognize the Armenian genocide. And he said, you know, what happened to the Armenians is not the only genocide in Turkey's history, and he referred to the Dersim massacre of 1937-1938, in which some 14,000 people died, and which Erdogan, as prime minister, only recognized as the fault of the government and apologized for it. I think it was about 6 years ago. And he also went on and he said something very similar to what you were pointing out. The German parliament's speaker said, Norbert Lambert. He said the Turkish government isn't responsible for what happened more than 100 years ago, but it could be responsible for what can happen in the future. Hüsya also said, you know, if we don't come to terms with the Armenian genocide, then other genocides will happen.
Jasper, very briefly, other parliaments have voted motions recognizing the Armenian genocide, but this time it's Germany, and between Germany and Turkey, there is, Jasper, a symbiotic relationship, you might say.
Yes, look, more than 20 parliaments around the world have passed similar resolutions. But, you know, as you're right, Germany and Turkey need each other. Turkey has lost a lot of friends in the past 6 years. It's got no relations with Israel, Syria, Russia, Egypt, so I don't think it can afford to lose Germany's friendship. I do expect the Turkish ambassador to Berlin to go back to Berlin shortly. And the fact is that German Chancellor Angela Merkel and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan have a good working relationship. And I think they'll get over this.
All right, many thanks. Jasper Mortimer there in Ankara. Yves Bertoncini, you heard Roland Tichy saying the timing of this is terrible.
Yes, the timing and the location, if I may say, because I'm not exactly sure that it's the role of a parliament to recognize or to proclaim what is a fact of life and death. Of course, there was a genocide, but we have had this experience in France And
That's
the
what you
problem
think.
is to know whether it's the role of a parliament to proclaim such things, or if it has been left to the historians, who have already made a fantastic job just to demonstrate that there was, yes, hundreds of thousands of Armenians killed at that time. Problem of location, problem of timing, indeed, because it could have been more logical last year, as you have said, for the, let's say, 100th anniversary of the start of this genocide. Now, it's a problem, yes, because there is an agreement between Germany, Turkey, and the EU with challenges to be faced, including the refugee crisis challenges. But I should say that because of these challenges, which are challenges of today, not of 1 century ago, paradoxically enough, it could help overcome this difficulty. We have seen this in the Turkish-French relation. Yes, there was a crisis when the French parliament has voted such resolution. I don't remember whether the ambassador has been called back to Turkey, recalled to Turkey. What I'm sure about is that he came back to Paris, and of course the Turkish ambassador will come back to Paris, and then the two governments and all the EU governments will come back to, I don't say business as usual, but will come back to more productive, constructive relations, simply because they have common challenges to face, as Angela Merkel has underlined it.
Arun Armagan, both sides need each other too much to let this spiral out of control?
Yeah, let me disagree first with your correspondent's comments in Turkey. First of all, I think it's very easy for you for these guys, for you people or your correspondent to use the word genocide. It's not. This is history, and this is not like learned by novels, like Mr. Roland said from Germany. This is the history and research that comes from the scientific background that has to have proofs. It's not like one correspondent thinks is genocide. It's not right to blame a country with genocide. Go with the historians, go with the facts, and then prove the facts. If there is something happened, then
all right, but will both sides overcome this?
We cannot. Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to coming here. When you talk about the timing of this unfortunate tragedy decision in the Parliament of Germany, it's not about the time, it's about the mistake they make, actually. The history, the facts are not going to be voted in the parliaments if something happened or not. That's not the way. First of all, you make a completely mistake. You have this mistake to vote it without proofs and anything, and then you discuss about the timing of this. It is completely different issues. First of all, this shouldn't be the way.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to cut you off very briefly. I'm going to have to cut you off because we have to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.